I want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is really an important thing, and hopefully more people will show up, because what we're facing right now is kind of a crisis. Some of you guys may know my story, some of you may not. There's a reason I'm running, and that reason has a lot to do with fossil fuels and basically the way we extract them in Denton. We all know that Denton has horrible air. It actually has an F quality air rating from the American Lung Association. We have been told that we have the worst air in Texas. And this is something that I say over and over again. But I'm shocked continually when I hear that people are skeptical about this. Skeptical. It offends me. The main reason I'm running is because this is something that's near and dear to me. And some of you guys know this story. I've said it a lot, and I'm getting more comfortable saying a lot, because when I used to say it, I used to well up. So, I have kids. My son was born in Denton. My only boy. My daughter, too. She's the only one. I've got two. Sorry, I'm kind of getting a little verklempt here. Anyway, my son had a tendency to get pneumonia, and we just thought it was a thing. Earlier this year, he had a cold, and this thing kind of kept persisting, and we thought maybe he was kind of faking because he didn't want to go to school. So we called his grandma and said, hey, can you take him to the doctor just to make sure, everything's fine? Because we were skeptical and we thought he just didn't want to go to school. And midway through the day, I got a call basically saying that I needed to leave work immediately, because the pediatrician had given him several breathing treatments and he wasn't responding, that his oxygen levels were in the 80s, and they were going to have to send him off to Cook's in Fort Worth, which, by the way, is another point, because we have no emergency pediatric in Denton, where we have the worst air possible. So I had to drop everything, and I spent a week in the hospital with my son. I remember that day because it was the day of the big eclipse, and he was looking forward to it. And that whole day, my wife and I were arguing over how our kids would be able to watch the eclipse. And my son was disappointed because we forgot to get eclipse glasses. In the end, it didn't matter because we were in an emergency room and watching it on TV. So when we talk about fossil fuels, this is a deep and important thing to me. And I get deeply offended when people don't understand the problem that we face in Denton. I was before the Dallas Morning News editorial board recently, and they were talking about the things. They were asking about what was important to me. And I talked about how important clean air was in Denton. And I mentioned the F air rating. And when I finished, they turned to someone else at the table and they said, do you believe Mr. Pruneda's claim that Denton has the worst air in Texas? Claim. It was a claim. Because I was before the Dallas Morning News editorial board, and suddenly I'm just some reactionary. Some reactionary whose personal story doesn't count. And that's how they treat us, right? That is how they treat people who care about clean air and water. You are a reactionary who is just going off on something, chasing windmills, fighting windmills. Exactly. But it is a fact, and I know that it is a fact, because when the air changes, I have to have someone reach for a rescue inhaler. I know that. It is a physical and a mortal threat, and we have to make sure people understand that. That is why things like divestment are important, because this is how we make our voices heard. We have to do this, and we have to do this in unity. We have to come together, and we have to make a stand. It is important. We are not just reactionaries. We're not just some hippies. We're not agitators stirring waters. These waters have already been stirred, and they are violent. And we can make a choice on what we do and how we respond to that. We can redirect them, we can dam them, or maybe someday we can walk on them, but the only way we do this is if we do it together. And that is why events like this are important. It is our duty as citizens, it's our duty as humans, It is our duty as people who love other people to make sure we spread the word and make sure our message is heard. We vote. Go out and vote for people who are personally invested in these causes. Make sure the people that you talk to take a hard stand. Because if they will not take a hard stand right now, they will not take a hard stand when doors are closed in Austin or Washington. Make sure you pick someone who's going to be your advocate. This is important. We have a primary coming up. In addition to that, make sure you spend your money where you trust it to go, to places that share your values, and make sure your money does not go somewhere where they're going to do this, where they're going to continue to fund the poisoning of our family. Now, Will talked a lot about science and everything, and I believe in science, but I know that there are people who aren't, who don't. There are a lot of people who say global warming and climate change are just some hoax. Then fine, we'll have a different conversation. I want to talk about poisoning. I want to talk about the poisoning of our air and the poisoning of our water. And I want to go to Michael Burgess or Lynn Stuckey and say, do you support the poisoning of our air and water and increasing the chances of our kids dying?
Yes, he is.
And if you do, I want you to take that stand. I want you to say that you support industries that are killing our families. Or you don't. There's only one way to go.
Yeah.
From here on out, it's not about phrases that can be turned around. You're either killing my child or you're not. That's the conversation I want to have. And I want to have that conversation with politicians, and I want to have that conversation with businesses, and I want everyone here to have that conversation too. My name's Matt Pruneda. I'm running for House District 64. Come out and support me in the primaries, but don't support them. Thank you.